It was only 1 year ago, almost to the day, November 2017, that the price of Bitcoin was hovering around about $5,000 per coin, which quickly became 10,000, at which point the news started talking more and more and more about Bitcoin. And all the speculators, all the speculation that was out there saying Bitcoin by now, a year from that day, they said that by now it would probably be close to $20,000 to $30,000 per coin. And now you look at it, and Bitcoin has dropped below 5,000, probably never to return. 4,807 is the close today. Ethereum, $146, Litecoin, $36. I'm fairly certain that all of the people who have Coinbase and other coin market systems on their phones, I'm pretty sure nobody's touched those apps. YouTubers like Crypto Doug, I have yet to see or hear of any more videos being released. And basically, it's amazing what a difference only a few months makes, because basically the price of Bitcoin basically started to collapse around the end of December, and it ended in January, where it fell below 14, then 13, then 12, then 11. And, I just think back to all of the people who got in late and didn't get out early or didn't get out on time. Now, I was fortunate that I got in and I got what I was going to get, and then I got out of it. But ultimately, people have been saying that Bitcoin and all the coins were going to ultimately fail simply because they were speculative assets. They weren't based on anything. It wasn't the same thing as investing in, say, gold or silver or even CDs or something, because the problem was there was nothing tangible there. It was just digital money. They had all these millennials lined up with their pockets open, their credit cards ready. Everybody was buying into all these things. And what they didn't realize was that the whole crypto market was probably the biggest Ponzi scheme that we're ever going to see in our lifetimes. It's our generation's tulip mania. And I just think back, and I'm just so lucky that I got out when I did. In fact, it was like among, some of my family members, they became interested in it because they bought into the hype too. But what ultimately scared me out of the market was the fact that the Donald Trump tax plan, when he put it through and then they started having all these regulations written in on cryptocurrency, I had made videos about the fact that I never believed that America's IMF, that's the monetary fund, I never ever imagined that they would ever allow anything to compete with the U.S. dollar. I always believed that the mere fact that there were people who could move money around without having to go through the banks, I always knew that they were going to crack down on that shit. And I knew that staying in there, it wasn't going to last. It wasn't going to be a good thing to stay in there, because I knew sooner or later those things could collapse. And it was crazy because I lost so much sleep watching my money. I had gained $2,000 or $3,000 right away, and then maybe lose $1,000, and then gain another $2,000 or $3,000. It was the crypto market was so ridiculously volatile this time last year, leading into Thanksgiving. It was so volatile that just watching every couple of minutes to an hour, you could literally gain $4,000 or $5,000 and literally lose it. But the thing about it is, anybody who thought the speculation was wild. Everybody thought by now Bitcoin would be over $20,000 per coin. In fact, it ended at around $19,000 per coin. That was about its high. I think it was like 19,300. And there were people who were really suggesting Bitcoin could go to $100,000 per coin, which drove in even more people to buy in. And now here it sits below 5,000. Ethereum, Litecoin. I think everybody at this point is looking at these things the way they should be looked at, like they're absolutely worthless. They're nothing. Now, does that mean that cryptocurrency is worthless? Well, you got to also remember that the whole point of cryptocurrency wasn't a get-rich-quick scheme. The whole point of cryptocurrency was to be able to move money around without, basically having banks there forcing you to pay their fees and this, that, and other. It was supposed to be anonymous, moving money around on the internet. There are some countries that started using it that I talked about, like Venezuela and Zimbabwe, and there's countries in Africa who found their dollar value or the value of their currency destroyed because of international currency trade wars. So you had countries like Venezuela is a perfect example, who started the petro. Now, our government immediately made it impossible or illegal for you to trade in petrol if you're an American citizen. So I always realized America was going to play its economic warfare games against Venezuela because they've been doing that for a long time. That's the reason why Venezuela is in the trouble it's in now. There's no way a mineral and oil-rich nation should ever be poor. Venezuela could have been Saudi Arabia if Venezuela was kissing America's ass. But the same thing goes for a country like Cuba. Cuba has a wealth of resources, and America has been determined not to do business with Cuba, which is economic warfare. Meanwhile, while they'll point at Cuba and talk about communist regimes and that bullshit on Fox, they'll do business with the Chinese government, who has the exact same human records violations and executes people by the boatload, kills Falun Gong members, this, that, and the other, Falun Dafa members. So America, with its hypocrisy, will do business with the Chinese and allow the Russians to steal presidential elections, but they don't do business with the Cubans, don't do business with the Venezuelans. Meanwhile, those people are in our hemisphere, and we're purposefully using economic warfare to keep certain countries poor. Anyway, there are countries in Africa who've broken away from the IMF, and they're using cryptocurrency to improve themselves. So cryptocurrency does have some use. Unfortunately, the way we were using it like it was a Ponzi scheme. We were using it in order to put in a small amount of money and turn a small amount of money into a large amount of money and then pull out a large amount of money. That's never what cryptocurrency was designed for. So the only thing I needed to say was, always remember, it doesn't matter what investment you plan on making. The moment the government puts its hands in that investment and especially starts taxing, it's basically the beginning of the end. And it's sad because a lot of people right now would be millionaires if they didn't have to pay the ridiculously high taxes, if they didn't have to pay the ridiculously high government fees on certain things. And I do understand the point for certain public services being paid for through tax dollars. I do totally understand that point because after, visiting countries like the Philippines where there's no railways and, mudslides and floods can mean that, everything is shut down because they just don't have the infrastructure. Oh, no. I totally understand the reason why we need taxes. I totally understand the reason why when I look at Puerto Rico and I see how bad Puerto Rico is because it doesn't have the taxes and it doesn't have enough people working because the government, is not taking in enough money. But the problem is when our government gets involved in something like this, you already know they're basically trying to destroy it. They ultimately know that, they'll basically drive it into oblivion. So it's like when government puts its hands in something like that, you already know it's over. And just let that be a lesson for any investment that comes down in the future that you ever think about getting invested in. If the government puts its hands in there, you're screwed. Get out immediately. It'll never, ever be able to flourish as long as the government's involved because government by definition is waste. Government by definition is not about profit. It's about redistribution. It's about waste. They don't care because they have the power to tax. Their bottom line is not set in stone. They're not like Apple. They're not like Amazon. They're not like Google. They're not having board meetings about making profit every month. That's not how they work. They don't care because if they lose money, they just tax you more. So I look back and I'm thankful that I was able to get out what I did. I'm thankful that I didn't get stuck in that shit like Ripple. I'm so thankful I didn't invest much into any of those things. And other things, like even Storiqua, it was like if you got in and you got out, you made money. But if you stayed in there too long, especially once you saw the writing on the wall, you start losing money. And I haven't made any crypto videos in a while. Just about nobody's making crypto videos anymore because, it's the whole thing has died off. NVIDIA and AMD video cards, for example, those things were selling like hotcakes. And then all of a sudden, it all came to a sudden end. And now, video cards, it's like crypto miners, that shit is dead. Nobody's rushing out to buy video cards for crypto mining. It's dead. Now, there are certain enclaves that still do bother to mine crypto, but for the most part, it's dead. So basically, I just reflect, and I'm just thinking back to what was life like a year ago, mark this November 2018, entering the Thanksgiving season. So anyway, happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully you didn't lose your shirts to cryptocurrency.